So this is our first pre-recorded show. I want to thank Derek and myself to actually arrange this, and definitely our guest for tonight, who is Jay Gray. Um, we could only fit him in at a certain time, so we're doing this a little earlier and basically off of our normally scheduled show. Um, but
Yeah,
we'll
so
see what we can do.
we can't take your questions today, sadly, but
Yeah.
we'll try and address anything that comes up in the next show.
Yep.
Um,
And let's welcome our guest, Jay Gray. How you doing, Jay?
I'm okay. Also, thanks to Rob for, dealing with the fact that he said, "Can you do X?" And I said, "I can do X." And then he said, "Oh, I messed up the time zone. Can you do Y?" And I can't do Y, but I'll try to do X. And I appreciate Rob doing all the extra work to make this happen.
Yes, I
yeah,
very
Rob Barefoot has been very proactive in scheduling and working through this stuff. You might
he's
have to get him a pair of shoes.
yeah,
Yeah.
been doing quite a bit. I mean, he's the one who arranged the live play with Acquisition Inc. Jerry and Mike from Penny Arcade,
Yes.
which I loved.
That was fun. That was 2.5 years of work.
Really?
Oh,
Well, we it started off several taxes ago before COVID. Um, so even longer, really, before COVID.
that's going
I,
back
I I said it. I started working with Eric
a
over at
long
Penny
ago
Arcade
time.
on it, and then COVID hit, and so there was a pause, and then we said, okay, COVID seems to be not over, but the world is getting back to the point where we can do things. So let's do this. And then the SAG strike hit.
Yep.
Um, and while this was not a SAG production, Penny Arcade was not Acquisitions Incorporated was not a struck studio. Uh, we felt that because in theory it was promoting an anime that was owned by a struck studio, which is Netflix,
Mm-hmm.
um, it could cause problems for the actors. Jerry and Mike don't care,
Right.
but the other actors are all SAG actors, and we didn't want to cause them any potential, even remotely the scent of conflict. Actually, Mike Pondsmith is a SAG actor too, and we didn't want to cause any problems for any of them.
Yeah,
And,
he did the voice works.
yeah, so
Well,
we yeah, and
goes.
you have to be SAG if you're going to do video game work. So he had
Yeah.
to be a SAG member to do his voice work for 2077. So we held off until the SAG strike ended. Like the minute they announced the resolution, Eric emails me, says it's time, and I'm like, yes, it is. Let's schedule it. And by that point, Rob, of course, was involved, and Rob handled the scheduling while I handled the characters. I made up the characters based on interviews I had with the players,
Yeah.
and then Mike, of course, did all the work on the actual adventure itself, and it all worked out. It was hard work by all three of us, plus Penny Arcade's amazing production staff and the actors and players present.
Right. So you guys were going to try to plan that for when Mike did the keynote.
Oh, it was complex. Basically, at first it was we didn't even get to a date before COVID hit. And then we're like, well, we're not going to bother with a date. We were at the point where we were like, here's what we're going to do. It's going to be live. Is it going to be recorded? Is it going to be edited? Are we going to be able to insert footage from the video game? We'll be able to do music. At that point, it was not an Edge Runners mission. It was just a Cyberpunk Red mission. And then, of course, as the mission kit was coming out, we switched it over to being Edge Runner tied in because that was, the product we were trying to promote at the time. And it is a world where we have to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, so it was just the case of we didn't really get a time until it's like, we're like, COVID's over. Let's set a time. SAG strike started. Let's not set a time. And then finally the SAG strike ended. We're like, no, we're going to set a time this right. And then we're going to do it no matter what happens.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I freaking loved seeing it. And it seemed like because I was in the watching it live, and it seemed like Jerry was very very ecstatic that he got the game with Mike. So
Yeah, yeah, no, they were great. It's I've always loved an act. You could tell when a crew is doing an actual play, and they're doing it because they're getting paid to,
yep,
and only because they're getting paid to, and when they're
Yeah.
actually having, real fun being players. And this was a game where they were really having fun being players, and they were being paid too. We pay people, but it's still there were players who were there to play and pick up a paycheck, which is nice, but play.
yep, cool. Yeah, is there plans for possibly doing another one in the future?
We are currently analyzing the data because that is a complex question. These are not inexpensive to make. So we have to really plan out, look at it. We're looking at what the numbers are, what the return was, how many eyeballs, all that stuff, and then we have to then decide what our budget is based on probably next year's budget, not this year's budget, because we're coming up towards the end of the year, and then we'll make a decision as to whether we want to do another one. The answer is we would love to, in theory, and we'll see if it is something we can do in practice.
Cool.
Excellent. I mean, it does look like it gave off the feeling of, man, that was a hell of an accomplishment to try and coordinate all that.
Yes.
So many people from so many different fields of media.
Yeah, it really was.
It came out beautifully.
I am super excited, to have worked on it. And I will say, once we got our part done, Penny Arcade did a fantastic job. They did the set. It was their camera people. It was their production people. It was them coordinating the players and making sure their schedules were right. So they did most of the hard work, in my opinion. Mike did the next, and then Rob, and then me.
I'd really like to see a comic book adaptation, or even just like a transcript.
That would be cool. It would be interesting to do a transcript removing a lot of the superfluous, the table banter, and tightening it into a story. That would be really interesting, and a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work. Like, I don't want to volunteer for that work. I just want to.
Yeah.
Get the finished product.
Exactly.
Be the consumer. Right. So yeah, I mean, kudos on that. I think it went great. And I've been a fan of Hack Inc. for many, many years, and I kind of been a bit of a fan of Nora since she did the Gen or not. Yeah, was it? No, it wasn't Gen Con.
Gary Con.
Gary Con. Yeah. And those live plays, and then I also follow her on she does a lot of things with Glass Cannon, for Call of Cthulhu.
She's a bouncer. She doesn't have one group she's with. She goes to many different groups, and she is great. Mike asked for her specifically. Everyone else that was in there, is Acquisitions Incorporated regular.
Yep.
And Mike said, I want Nora in there. We want some gender balance. We want some diversity in the cast. We want good players, and Nora is all of those.
Definitely.
Yeah, she's just awesome.
She really is.
Well, that's our show. No.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad I was able to talk about this one thing.
Yeah. So big news. So Gen Con 2 weeks ago. Sadly, I was not able to attend this year. Other con I'm prepping up for. Plus, I just for Monacon over in Rhode Island. So I only can do so many cons a year, but big news coming out of there. So your announcements are Shadow Scar just had its pre-release with the starter kit. Sounds like that went stellar.
Yes. So I'll start with saying that Shadow Scar's Quick Start is available for free on DriveThruRPG. You can get it at any time for free. I'm emphasizing those words. It costs you nothing to go download it and check it out. Shadows Cart is, for those of you who do not know, because it doesn't quite have the name recognition Cyberpunk does, it is our new and our Talsorian Games' first original game line in quite a while. It's we haven't done a non-licensed IP. Gosh,
Since Falkenstein?
Falk was probably the last new one, or Cybergen, depending on how you look at it. But after that,
did Falk come after
90
Dream Park?
94, I believe it came after Dream Park.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Well, Dream Park was a
But
IP.
Dream Park is a licensed IP.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's based off a series of novels. But yeah, go check them out.
Yeah,
They're really cool.
yeah, you're right. No, I don't know why I'm having this kind of brain fart.
But
I knew that.
But after Falk, and it was Dragon Ball and Photom and Bubblegum Crisis, and then we came back with Witcher, and Cyberpunk is not new. So Shadows Cart is our first new one in quite a while. It is the elevator pitch is imagine Stargate but with ninjas and interdimensional and other dimensions instead of worlds. That's basically it. You are a secret covert ninja trained agent working for a interdimensional agency. You travel to different dimensions fighting yokai who are trying to disrupt human civilizations in those dimensions, and you are there to stop them without yourself disrupting human civilizations in those dimensions. So it's got at its core, there's a very Japanese mythology influence and pop culture influence, but the different dimensions take a lot of different tacks from 1950s science fiction to 1920s gangsters and Victorian steampunk. There's a lot of different worlds and the potential for more worlds because you can make your own, each with a very different style, which is fun. So you're not stuck in one genre. You can bounce between genres as you play.
I mean, that sounds pretty awesome to me. I know people have been waiting for it for a long time and have been pretty excited to see what, the spawn of Mike's loins, Cody Pondsmith, what he had in store for us.
Yeah, and this is Cody's game, his first fully original game, done with the Mosaic system, which is a new system. It's not interlock. It's very cool. It is a dice pool based system, but very easy, fast to get a hold of. And like I said, you can get easy mode, easy mode / quick start online. Just type in Shadows Cart drive through, it'll pull it up. And I believe the box set, the starter box, which we pre-released at Gen Con, will be fully released for sale soon. I want to say like by next week, as of this date, which is 8/21/2024 for people listening in the future.
Excellent. Yeah, I definitely is going to check out the quick start, and see how I can integrate it with my gaming group. Although they're kind of very system loyal, I guess.
If you need a push, I will say Mike Pondsmith's exact words were, "I would play this even if my son didn't write it."
All right. Mike says it's good, then it's good.
I really dig the concept. I've been wanting to run a game loosely based on Time Bandits for years, and this seems like the perfect thing to do that with.
It really does, and because it has a kind of heavy anime-ish influence, you'll see that in the art. You can definitely, there's lots of room for comedy and just fun as well. To if you don't want to take it too seriously, if you want to do a little Time Bandits style, or you can go or Stargate, which also had its comedy moments.
And an anime influenced game from R. Talsorian.
Yeah, that it can't be possible that 5 of our 6 games are heavily anime influenced.
Well, I mean, it was anime influence that got me into Cyberpunk. So
yeah,
6 games really.
There you go.
So like just all the little Easter eggs from it. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing what Shadow Scar has to offer.
Yes.
Excellent.
So next announcement was something that has been in the pipeline, I think, for the past 2 years, and that's Tales of the Red Forlorn Hope coming out this
Yes.
fall.
Literally, I was working on it right before. That's why it was a few minutes long, and I was finishing up one little bit of it. And that gets pushed out to the printers very soon, and as soon as the printers send it back, which is a 6 to 8 week period process generally, we will put it up for sale. So yes, it will be out this fall. It is fantastic. It is going to be our first campaign for Cyberpunk Red. We put out adventures for Cyberpunk Red, including the first Tales of the Red Street Stories was 9 individual adventures. Well, 7 individual adventures and 2 fully connected adventures. This one will be a campaign. It's 6 adventures. Each adventure is about 20 pages long. Take you about 2 to 3 sessions, depending on your playtime and group. More. That's it. At a minimum, role-play heavy groups always find ways to extend things. But it will, and it basically starts off with Marianne at the Forlorn Hope has a job for you. And from there, events will transpire without spoiling. In those events, you will help basically decide the future of the Forlorn Hope in Night City. It is something I noticed when I took over the line. When I say take over the line, it's still Mike's line, but when I took over day-to-day running of the line, I noticed that if you look back at our adventures from 2020, there aren't, despite talking about keeping it street level and making it personal, there aren't a lot of personal street level missions out there in 2020. The big campaign, Home of the Brave, Land of the Free, was this cross-country trek involving deep super technology, right? And some very serious issues as to what a human being is. And then Eurotour, which is the next biggest campaign book, was you're working for a popular rock star touring across Europe. Even smaller ones, even the original Forlorn Hope, which is a classic book, was you're hopping around the world doing these military level street merc operations.
It wasn't for beginners.
Yeah, and the Firestorm books was you're fighting a world war, and even when the chips fall, or as the chips fall, the adventure that's packed in with the GM screen, was you're starting off in Australia, and you're in a corner of Australia, literally, I've had people say I've been to that location in Melbourne, but spoilers unfortunately for this very old adventure. At one point you go up to the Crystal Palace, and I'm like, so we've never really done a serious street level, personal campaign for it. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to say, hey, we've said Red is supposed to be personal. We said we've deliberately kept it street level for a long time here. So let's really take it and go there. Let's make it street level. And you don't leave Night City in this book. You are doing things for people that your characters know, for this community built around the Forlorn Hope. You are making the Forlorn Hope happen or not happen depending on your actions. And there's some great stuff you're doing. You're not doing piddling little, minor jobs the entire time, but you are doing jobs that are important, not necessarily to Night City as a whole, but to these less than 100 people for who the Forlorn Hope is a real home. And you're making a difference there. It does introduce some cool new rule systems, some of which we've actually already put out as DLCs, like the chase rules, the agent hacking rules. There is the roller derby game rules. I had fun working with Linda Evans to create roller derby in Cyberpunk because I grew up in the 80s and there were like 15,000 kids on skate movies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Back then, roller babies and such. And so I was like,
I mean, roller derby was so popular in the 80s, and hell, the first Jackie Chan American production, he was in a roller derby.
yeah. So I think, God, that feels like a really cyberpunk sport, doesn't it? So we fleshed it out to include rules for it. There will be rules. This is actually, I'm going to give you guys some spoilers. You guys get some exclusives here.
Yeah.
There are 2 other rule sets we'll be introducing. One is flashback rules, new ways of spending luck to change the story, because one of the missions in Forlorn Hope, this Forlorn Hope sequel, is specifically a heist. It is not. There is very little combat. It is the kind of thing that you have to go in, you have to plan, you have to figure out what you're going to do. It guides you through. It's very smart. It was written by Melissa Wong, and it's very smart how it does it. Think Leverage, or Ocean's 11, much more than, say, The Sting. And we wanted to. We recognize heists are hard. They're hard to run for the GM, so we tried to make it so that here's the plan. We give you the character. The GM is able to, through an NPC character, give plans or ideas without saying you're going to do it this way. There are options, but also we recognize it's hard for the players because in my very old game group we called it shadow running, because at the time we were playing Shadowrun. We came across this problem. You're going to break into a place. You're going to pull off a heist, and you start planning. You're saying, well, what if they have this? What if they have that? What if they have the other thing? And you end up spending like 8 hours,
Analysis paralysis.
planning. Exactly. So we borrowed. I'll be honest. We borrowed from other systems that have done this. The concept that if you say, okay, if you get to X and you don't have what you need for X, you can spend luck and do a flashback and hopefully obtain something you need to make X a possibility, not a certainty, but a possibility.
Nice.
It is a
I
system
like that
where,
concept.
yeah, we're recommending it's like you don't necessarily use it all the time. You use it in specific situations like heists or where it's important. If you're in the middle of a fight, you want to say, oh, well, obviously my rocket launcher's in my backpack. That's probably not the place for it.
Kind of like Fate.
Yeah, it has some similar ideas. And the other thing is we will be introducing a headquarters building system.
Ooh.
Which is new to Cyberpunk, because the Forlorn Hope, when all is said and done, is sort of like a headquarters. It was always designed to be, wasn't it? It's a bar, but you can rent a room there, and there's a tech there to repair your things, and there's a Ripper Doc to repair your body, and there's a shooting range.
Yeah, it's like a micro-arcology.
Exactly. And so we said, well, okay, if all is said and done, and it's possible you may end up with the use of the Forlorn Hope or another location as a headquarters. So let's build a system for building the headquarters so it feels like a character, a person, part of your thing, that it helps make your group more cohesive, and it gives bonuses in different ways. So James Hutt worked really hard and made a great system for that. So those will all be there. The writing, we had some really cool people. We had Chris Spivey, who did Harlem Unbound. We had Melissa Wong and Linda Evans, who are mainstays. They are there with Cyberpunk Red doing cool stuff. We had Eddie Webb, who has done 1,000 things for World of Darkness. Worked on the Transformers RPG. His piece de resistance is Pugmire, which is dog people in D&D, and it's much more adorable, much less furry than it sounds. So we had these great writers come in, and best of all, I can't expect new Cyberpunk Red players to buy and read the old Forlorn Hope book from the 2020s, Cyberpunk 2020. So we wanted.
It's still available at your store, and as well as Drive Through RPG. So
we'll
have access.
Is.
We love it so much we named the show after it. So.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. But I will say, but for those people who haven't, I wanted to introduce the Forlorn Hope to new players. So there is, at the beginning of the book, a piece of fiction and a timeline of the Forlorn Hope's history up until 2045. The fiction is written by Mr. William Moss, who you might recognize as the writer of the original Forlorn Hope book. And I can say without a doubt that he is as good a writer now as he was then. It introduces a new character who has a strong connection to an old character, an old character who showed up quite often in 20. I won't spoil it beyond that, other than to say you may need some tissues as you read it.
Oh, yeah, we've been very, very excited with the news that Will Moss was writing the opening fiction.
Yeah, no, I went to him. He said, "You got me at exactly the right point in time because I'm back from Singapore. I have a little free time." And he sent me his rough draft, and I'm reading it. And I'm like, oh wow, I need like 20 changes, which for a short story, is not a lot of changes. My red lines were very small. It's like, and they're all things like, in Cyberpunk Red, we call it this now.
Yeah.
Some of it was like, we don't call it live streaming, we call it live casting. It's very small things, but other than that, he goes, and like we low-key had to invent a new piece of cyberware based on one of his descriptions. But beyond that, he was easy to write and work with, and he just is a fantastic noir writer. He just is amazing.
We've been putting off. We've been reviewing the official R. Talsorian adventure books, and we've been putting off doing Forlorn Hope until the official announcement. And in fact, that's what we were going to do today. Was our review of Forlorn Hope before we got news that you were going to be on the show, which, live interview is always better.
Forlorn Hope is not my favorite set of adventures for Cyberpunk 2020, which is like saying, red velvet cake is not my favorite cake. I will still eat it if you put it in front of me. Happily do so. But the Forlorn Hope itself is my number one favorite. I'll take it over the Afterlife. I'll take it over Atlantis every time. Yes, absolutely.
I searched through 2077, just trying to find something with a sign outside that said Forlorn Hope.
So the official word is, because I had a long conversation with Patrick and Mike about this. Patrick is our main contact over 2077. He's their continuity guy. And, we basically said, okay, the Forlorn Hope isn't in 2077, though if you dig into the files, you'll see that originally it was, and then they removed it. And they merged it with the Afterlife. So, for example, Claire was originally supposed to be related in some way to Marianne. She has the same last name, Russell.
Perfect sense, yeah.
Marianne's maiden name is Russell. But so what we came up with was, there is no official, if you go to 2077 and play around it, there is no official existence of the Forlorn Hope. But that doesn't mean it's not there. It just means it's not there yet. Or to say that it could be put into continuity if and when they so desire on their side. That's up to them.
So it might show up in Orion.
It might show up. It might show up in a comic. It might show up in a book. You never know. The option is there. Basically, the Forlorn Hope isn't officially closed by 2077. It's just not officially open yet. It's a Schrodinger's bar.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they might have just taken down the sign to incognito.
But no, I'm excited. So I babbled on it. This was honestly so much fun to put together and work with the writers on. I just was so happy with it. And as I'm doing the layout on it, which is what I'm doing right now, I'm just seeing it. We've taken lessons from the original Tales of the Red. We've taken lessons actually from Mission Kit and how we did things in the Cyberpunk Edge Runners Mission Kit and doing things. We are putting a rumor table at the start of every adventure, so that you can either give the rumors to your medias to their credibility, rollability, or you can just give them out like tavern rumors if you want. Some of them are specific. Some of them hint at upcoming adventures. Some of them talk about things as you get past the first adventure. They talk about things that happened in previous adventures. It's always nice to hear your glory reflected on you, isn't it? And they talk about, and some of them are just world circumstance happening anyway. We are putting a beat chart, a visual beat chart in each mission now, which is something we did for the first time in the Mission Kit, which is literally a visual flow chart with shapes. Anyone who's everyone.
I really loved that concept.
Yep.
When we reviewed it with Rob Mulligan, we talked about how nice and innovative that was.
Yep, that will be on every adventure. We'll have that, and then every section ends with downtime, which basically it's a short paragraph that says you should have at least this much downtime at this point, and here's what you may want to do, and then go on to the next adventure. There are branching paths, not in every adventure, but in multiple adventures. For example, you can get through the final adventure and deal with the stuff that happens without firing a shot if you want, or you can go in and fire a lot of shots. We really wanted to present the option. Actually, I was really pleased with the playtesting because I thought, for example, in that final adventure, we get 90% of the playtesting groups taking the violent route and 10% taking the non-violent route. But it was actually a good 50-50 split. And I'm really happy to see that groups out there are saying, oh, I want to play not a less violent cyberpunk, but a more covert and cyberpunk where violence is the last resort, not the first resort. Because I personally think that's more fun because it's always better to have more options than less.
I mean, playing cyberpunk for what, 30 plus, going on 35 years now. Yeah, that's the way you have to do it.
Yeah.
It's smart.
It's fun. So we wanted to also just show different styles of play. Like we wrote the heist mission because we wanted to say, okay, here's how you do a heist. We wanted to do, we have a mission that's nothing but essentially subquests, side quests, which is always fun. It's almost a day in the life of a neighborhood mission, which is really fun. It's like you walk around and these are the things that happen over the course of a few weeks in one neighborhood. We have, and it's like great slice of life stuff going on. We have, I'll say, we had tried to get Seth Skorkowski to write a mission. Unfortunately, he wasn't available at the time, but we still have an mission based entirely around real estate because of his fame. So we have a lot of really cool stuff in here. I'm really excited to see people playing it, and we have definitely tried to make it. Also, we will, for the first time, be introducing, I just started laying these out today, what are abbreviated stat blocks, which are basically, instead of taking up half a page the way the stat blocks have in the past, they take up a quarter of the page. And they release, there's a lot of stuff that's not there, but stuff that you don't necessarily need for, if your big boss has five mooks, the mooks don't need full stat blocks. They just need the combat number. So that will make running the everything faster, smoother, and easier.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and that's been a concept I think with a lot of GMs of late is just give a number, right? And to me, it calls back to the threat code from Night City source book, right?
Yeah, and
it just gives you a number and the gear.
Even for the larger, for the full stat block, which we still do for the important characters who you might interact with on multiple levels, next to their attack types, there will be the base number you roll with, so that you can know exactly quickly without having to look at the sort through the skill list what the number is. So we learned some lessons and we're carrying them forward. It's always a balance between keeping the dress.
Hello?
Did we lose you?
Hello?
Hello?
No, I'm here.
Oh.
Okay.
You cut your sentence off quick. We didn't know if you just fell off.
Yeah, my phone beeped, and no, I'm good. I'm here.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So moving on to the next.
I could. Yeah, that's what I could talk a lot about. So I can talk a lot about it. I will say, the art's fantastic. The cover is great. It is a bar fight. I will say the art. Originally, I was inspired to do the art because it's a bar. It needs a bar fight. But I was inspired. The original cover of, blanking on the name. It's actually about a bar too. It's a comedy art. comedy RPG. Tales of the Floating Vagabond.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I was inspired by that, which their cover is a bar fight. Ours is a little more serious than theirs, but I've always loved the game. It's like, if you're gonna do a bar, you got to do a bar fight.
Yeah, when we had
Yeah,
Craig
it's got
Sheely
something
on,
somewhere.
Craig said that he loved that game and loved producing adventures for it.
It was a great game. It remains. You can still get it. It's a great game. And the shtick system they use is pretty innovative, especially for the time it came out.
Right. So the next announcement was Night City 2045.
Yes, not the final title. I want to note.
Okay.
That's just what the project name is.
Got it.
I don't know what the final title is.
So that you have
I
15
mean,
writers, some of the old timers like Mike McDonald and some of the members of the cyberpunk community like N Jolly are getting
Yes.
involved with it. So does each of the authors get their own like little district or little bit of the city to kind of flesh out, or how's that work?
Yes. So there will be. I can give a little bit of information here. So there will be front matter, just like there was in the original Night City, that talks about Night City and the pieces of Night City and how the government works and how transportation works and what the weather's like and so forth and so on. It gives you because we're still taking the travel guide approach, though
Excellent.
it is slightly different in that this is a travel guide after it's been hacked by medias who want to actually tell the truth as opposed to people trying to sell you something.
Okay.
It starts off with that, and that will be written mostly by myself and Mike, and Dave Ackerman, and then it will go on to it'll also talk about the gangs and the corporations, and it'll go on to the districts, and each district does have either a writer or a in some cases a duo or writers, a pair of writers, and each writer will be writing in the voice of, this is something we did with Danger Jail, a unique character who is talking about that district and the locations, and that way we get more flavor, but also we get to see each district through the eyes of media who lives there, so.
The original Night City source book is widely regarded as the greatest city source book ever written for any games that come out there.
I agree, and that's intimidating as hell.
Yeah, I was gonna say those are some big shoes to fill.
Those are, and the key there is that we want to do it. We want to do right by it while not copying exactly. There's formatting. For one thing, Night City in 2045 is a bigger city than what was in Night City. We cannot do block by block. We don't have 600 pages to do a block by block map. So instead, we will do more like what you see in Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever mapping software you use today for your phone. It will be a street. It will be a street map of Night City, and on the street map will be pins, and those pins will be locations. And we do this for two reasons. If you look at the original Night City's book, there was a strategy. The strategy was, we will detail this small section of the city. This is the Manhattan, right? This is the main part of the city. And then there will be all these other parts of the city. And it was honestly never particularly clear whether they were suburbs or part of the city or part of the greater Night City area. But we'll do these parts, and these parts will populate with some things and otherwise leave it open so that you can put whatever you want there for your home campaign. We are doing something similar in that we're saying, here's these things. There's going to be at least as many locations in this book as there were in the original Night City book. So you're not going to be skimping. We're not skimping on locations, but we'll put them in there. We'll say, okay, here's all these places. But if you look at it, there's a lot of empty space between these map points, and that's where you put your things. And instead of saying, well, we filled in Little Italy and Old Japantown. And City Center, so you get to have South Night City. You get to have wherever you want in between the spaces.
Yeah, and I know.
Yeah, that
Derek
actually sounds. Yeah.
You did it to the nth level with your Night City of 2020.
Yeah. my amalgamated map where I just took bits and pieces from Google Earth from cities all over and threw them all in this giant Night City. And then at the corner is the actual Night City map. I actually used the German version from Games In,
Yeah.
but it's the same map. I love Night City so much.
Yeah, and we're currently working on a full street map of Night City in 2045. And when I say street map, I mean you'll be able to see the names of the streets, and it will be, so we're not saying, okay, here's a blank space and you have to fill in your streets. The streets will be in there, and we'll work on that.
Nice really big excited. Poster size.
And I can't talk about the poster that may or may not
exist.
I will say that we are making sure the artist makes this thing has a very, very, very large file so that we can do a lot with it, because this is not the end of working on it. Even after this book comes out, we may have to do things with it. So we're planning ahead. And when you plan ahead, you want to make sure your art is of a high resolution and a high size, so that it's something you can, and on many layers, so you can work with it. So we're going to work really hard on that. And I'm super excited about the writers. We've got, like you said, we got Mike McDonald coming back in, and he was there for the original Night City book.
Yeah.
We've got, Melissa Wong is coming back, and she, as she pointed out, she's lived in the United States for many, many years now, but she grew up in Singapore, and she's lived all over the world, and so she has a really unique and international concept of how cyberpunk works and what happens when there are low resources in an area. And that's, it's a non-American centric view, and that really changes the flavor of it, and that really brings something to it. We've got Chris Spivey back again and Eddie Webb back again, and I happen to say Steve Kenson, who was the genius behind Mutants and Masterminds, and to mention the other game, Shadowrun, third edition. He did a lot of work on that. And he's just one of my favorite writers. We've got and newer people coming in as well. Trace Wilson is coming back. He worked on a few things with us. We have Allison Seib, who worked over on things for Renegade, as well as other people. So we've got this great group of writers with a depth and breadth of experience that's just awe-inspiring. And as a result, we will have some amazing things. And we have James Hutt and Rob Barefoot actually both working together on Pacifica and Playland by the Sea. Playland by the Sea
beautiful.
We'll get pages upon pages of detail. It will be its own mini setting within Night City that you can go to. And the great thing is we have James's imagination, and James's experience. James has lived all over the world. James has been to many a theme park, and he has a really good sense of pop culture trends. And then Rob has many years of actual experience working in theme parks like Universal Studios. And so between the two of them, if that section does not come out and a park employee, someone who's worked like 10 years at Disney, doesn't say, "Ha, I get it. I get the joke you just put there," we've done something wrong. So I'm excited. I'm terrified, but I'm excited. It is going to be a huge book. And it was going to be a great book, and it's going to have some amazing content. It's going to be, I want to say it's going to be a worthy successor, and also a new example of how this kind of thing is done. No small goals here.
Right.
No small aspirations. I'm really working hard on it.
Yeah,
and
15.
So with the rest of the team.
15 authors sounds like you're going to be herding kittens and puppies, as well as taking care of a newborn.
It's not that complex, honestly, because they're all good. They're all professionals. We have a Discord server where we hang out together, and they talk to each other. And one of them will say, "Hey, I have blah," and I have a 70-page core document, which I gave them. I said, here's literally everything we've said about Night City so far, and as well as here's the outline of the project. Here's the list of every location, and we've already got hundreds of locations. We've released through documents, products, and DLCs. And here's all the locations that already exist. Here are things I want in there that don't exist yet, but need to be. Things like there should be at least, a casino or two. There should probably be some brothels. I want houses of worship more than just one Catholic church in the middle of little Europe. I want the city found alive. It needs a water treatment plants. It needs bus stations. It needs all these things. And they'll come in and they'll go, okay, yep. I want, like, as an example, I said, and nothing's final. I'll say it could get cut from the book, but I say, someone came in and said, I want to do something on spinning. Spinning is a motor sport in South Africa that started off as a funerary rite for gangsters, where people would perform these elaborate dance stunts on the outside of their vehicles as the vehicle was spinning around in circles doing donuts.
Oh, I've seen videos of that.
And so I was like,
that's insane.
That is cool. And it's car rodeo, and there's variations of it around the world. I said, that is something that is absolutely happening in Night City. Someone make sure you do something with it.
And whatever you have left over, you can either do another book or do it as a DLC.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, content can go somewhere else, and that's the big thing. Is in the end, it's like I remember talking to Mike McDonald about it when I was first working on the outlines, and I said, "How did you do the original book?" And he said, "Well, we worked it out, and we divided it up, and we each worked on sections. And a lot of times when we were done, something that was here ended up needing to go over there because we had too many of this thing there, so we moved it, or it made sense. And so I'll be moving things around when all is said and done, or cutting things, or adding things on occasion, because it turns out that I messed up the word count, and I have a half an inch of column space I need to put a new thing in it, so I'll make it up on the spot. But yeah, they'll work, and then I'll organize. And every project's like this. It's a lot of work at the beginning, and then I hand the work out, and then I do nothing with it except for answer questions from the writers for months, and then they hand me their drafts, and I do more work, a burst of work, and I hand it back, and they hand me their finals, and then it's a lot of work again. So it's like this odd set of sine wave of work and no work, and in the no work, I work on other projects.
Right.
You sound like you're just constantly busy. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's
I
like to justify my paycheck. But yeah, no, I got, there's a lot going on, because I'm sure you have other things you want to ask about beyond that. That's about all I can say about Night City.
Okay.
It is going to be a good book.
My only other question was, is there a lot of back and forth between you and CDPR to make sure that, it's forward compatible?
Yeah. There's things like when I first started planning this, I said to them, if there's anything you think existed in 2045, please let me know. And then, I went in and I said, okay, here's a list of locations I think exist in 2045. What do you think? And there's back and forth there. And then as we get forward, I'll send them copies and more information, and they'll send me back. And there is time. Actually, I told the writers this. I said, you have an advantage that a lot of people who are working on this, on a book like this, don't. I mean, if you're working on a book based on a real city, you can go walk that city. But if you're working on a fictional city, most people don't have a chance to go into a video game and walk the streets. And yes, they're 30 years apart. But if you walk the streets in New York in now, you can recognize parts of New York from 30 years ago. So
yeah, the landmarks are there.
Yeah, the landmarks are there. Obviously the neighborhoods have changed, but you can go and you can see things. And if you see things that you think are, should be there, if you say, okay, this store I think should exist now, let me know, and then I'll go talk to CD, and we'll be sure they're good with it, because you respect their side of the timeline, they respect ours. Right. And we'll move forward there. And the same is true in 2020, by the way. One of the fun things I got to do with this project, we kind of did it before, but I did it more firmly, was I sat down and said, okay, obviously when CDPR did 2077, and then we adopted this in 2045 with Red, they took that little section we talked about of Night City, and they expanded it to fill in a larger portion of the landmass. And so I worked on it and said, okay, these districts in the 2020 Night City book are actually here, here, here in the Cyberpunk Red book. So that if you go through and you read, okay, I want this location from 2020, 2045, you know where it's supposed to be roughly. Like Charter Hill in 2020s in Little China. Now that what was Charter Hill is in Little China of 2045. They just named a larger amalgamated district when they essentially divided the city up into juntas.
Yeah, and the cultural hubs in the city, they move around over time.
Yeah, and we talked about, if you read the Mission Kit book, we talk about that some, about why Haywood is in one place in 2045 and another place in 2077. There's a reason for it.
Well, I'm super happy to see Mike McDonald taking an active role again. We've been talking about trying to get him on the show, so it's
he's
nice that we can reach out to Barefoot and see if he can put us in contact.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, talk to Rob, and Rob can work that. It's I've got some fantastic writers, old and new. Old school and new school. It's this great broad mix, and as a result, it will be a fantastic project that brings in a lot of old school cyberpunk, as well as newer, not fresher, but newer thoughts that, and between the two, we'll get this great amalgamation of possibilities where anything can happen. People like to say, always ask me how big Night City is, and I always say Night City is big enough. You can go anywhere, and anything can, it can contain anything, but small enough that in a month you can visit everywhere in it, and still, every district and travel it. So it should feel both like a big city of possibility, but also a small city where you can be, part of many different locations.
Cool. So speaking of CDPR in 2077, there is Cyberpunk 2077 source book box set. It is a project we are working on. It will be a guide. It will be there for you to play in the 2077s. It'll be a follow-up to the Mission Kit. It will obviously have more than the Mission Kit has in terms of cyberware and gear. But I can't talk more about, and locations. They'll talk about. We'll talk about the Night City 2077, though not as in depth as we will about the Night City 2045 and the Night City book. But I can't talk more about what the actual book will be, or project will be, until we're further along in it. We are still working out specific details. We've worked out a lot of details with CDPR because, like the Mission Kit, this is a tie-in product in that it talks to their side of the timeline, and therefore we work much more closely with them on every stage. And so as we firm things up, we'll announce more about it. But I will just say it is in progress, and it is happening. And the Mission Kit laid a lot of groundwork for it.
Right. I was going to say, after what you just said, you probably can't give a straight answer on this. But when you guys are doing the 2077 project, are you just focused on the game that's already come out, or are you in communication with the project they're working on? Is that even a thought?
I will say we do talk to them back and forth. They talk to us about projects we're working on. We talk to them about projects they're working on. We keep things in mind from what we know. I can't say more than that. I will say that the 2077 book will be more than a video game. It will bring in things from the anime, from the comic book series from Dark Horse, and from the novel. So it will be. It will take look at the era as a whole with whatever resources are available to us. But it will. I can't say that it's going to contain spoilers or previews for Orion specifically, because the lead time on a video game, and that's a practicality thing. The lead time on the video game development cycle is super long. and
they don't want to make the same mistake, I'm sure, where they're saying all this will be included and then they have to
Yeah.
get some of it back. So that's perfectly understandable.
Yeah, it's just this thing where we don't want to say X and then have them say, okay, it was X, but for these reasons it now has to be Y. So we'll probably focus much more on what's existing. Though that being said, we'll work with them to try to make sure that we don't contradict anything that may be coming down the line as much as possible.
Okay, so that leads to another question that I had, which was, so there's the new board game that's coming out for, and the involvement with CDPR with that, and it seems like they've been involved with the comics, whether they're having people help write the stories, the anime. Is there any talks about someone from CDPR actually either as a game designer or one of their staff coming in and contributing to Cyberpunk Red either as a DLC or with this particular project, or is that something you can't say yet?
Actually, if you look at the mission kit, you'll see Patrick Mills has a development credit in it, because the work we did was, it wasn't a, we said here write 5,000 words. It was a case of the amount of work he did with us was so expansive that we felt he deserved a development credit and not just a consulting credit. So he was this, but no, at this point we're not. And then of course, we had Edge Runners writer writing us backgrounds, but no, we at this point they're busy. They are so busy.
Are they?
I don't think yeah, no, they're doing a lot of work.
Really?
Yeah.
I heard something that they were moving or something like that.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where I don't honestly think that if I went to them and said, hey, do you want to, I have this section of the city, or I have this section of this book, or I have these words, and if, my normal procedure is you have 2,000 words, here's the brief, go for it. I don't think that they would have a lot of time to work on that, unfortunately. But like I said, as we work with them, we credit where credit is due.
Got it. So moving on, Interface Red, Volume 4.
Yes.
There's going to be some inclusions of more martial arts involved?
Yes, over 20 of them.
Cool. Are you changing any of the mechanics around martial arts, or is it going to be similar to what's in the base book?
It will work exactly the same way the base book does. We're not changing the mechanics. These are just new martial arts that plug into the existing system. So each martial art will have its own special moves. And yes, that includes both Arasaka Te, which is a joke of a martial art, really, and
Panzerfaust?
And Panzerfaust. So those will both be in there. Will Gun Fu. Every martial art will, instead of, we're not changing anything. We're not going back to the old, here's 30 different things, and this gets pluses and minuses depending on whether you're kicking or punching or throwing. But each one will have special moves. James Hutt did the design on this, and he worked really, really hard to make each martial art really feel interesting and unique. And they actually have, as he was designing, he designed them to have interactions with each other, so that if you take the right martial arts in combination, take both the skills, you can use their moves in creative ways together.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. It's currently in playtesting, and once the playtesting is done, we will move to publishing. Because the nice thing about the interfaces is that for the most part, they are already done.
Cool. Or is that something that we can expect before Forlorn Hope, or is it going to be something after?
Probably after this point. It does have to go through editing. I do have to get at least I had to get a little more art, and then it has to go through layout, and then it has to drive through RPG and go through a proofing cycle to make sure the proofing, the print-on-demand copy works fine. So I would not expect it to be until after. My guess is it will be roughly the same size as the previous as Interface Red 3, which is a nice chunky book at this point. They're getting a little longer every time because our DLCs tend to be longer, and because we moved to like 6 articles plus a thing, which we did for 1, to here's a year's worth of material for the most part. Sometimes we leave a few things out, like I think we won't be putting in Tales of the Red Forlorn Hope Plus because it's so specific to the adventure. But for the most part, all the DLCs are included for people who like to have them all in one place or printed on their shelf.
Physical copies are always nice to play around with.
I love looking at them.
So the next thing that seems from the announcement you guys were pretty excited with was the Trauma deck.
Yes. So the Trauma deck is going to be, it does not introduce any new rules. I'll say that. This is not a new system. This works a lot like the Netrunner deck. It is a aid to existing rules. So basically it will be the critical injuries and a few other things as cards, which you can easily hand out to your players, either virtually or physically. And that way you have to say, you have a broken arm. Here's all the things. Or you have a broken arm, see page XX. It'll be here. You have a broken arm. Here it is. And you hand them the cards. This is how it affects your character.
Good. Nice. How many cards are in the deck?
That is a great question. I'll let you know when I know.
Oh,
I'm currently working out spreads. The idea being is like you can have multiple of the same injury. You can't, but you can have multiple of the same injury within the party.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so there will be multiples of each injury, and I had to decide, basically, work out how many of each I can have, and still have make the right increments of cards that decks require. But that is something we're going to be working on. We've got the basics down. Obviously, we don't have to write anything new, but we're going to be working on that. And I'm hoping that kind of aim for like the end of the year with that. I need 5 seconds after Forlorn Hope's done to sit down and do the layout on them.
Are you going to include any new critical injuries specifically for the pack, or just
no?
Shot off my pinky toe.
No. Just like with the net running deck, we don't want to, and we have this for most of our products. Is the idea being is if you go in the core rule book, you've got what you need, so you don't have to own Black Chrome to play Tales of the Red Forlorn Hope because there's a whole bunch of Black Chrome weapons in it. It's the same basic idea.
Right.
Here, we don't want to add anything new. If you're playing this, if you're playing without the deck, we want you to be able to have access to the same things that you were doing playing with the deck. So yeah, nothing new.
Okay.
It's just a play aid for existing rules.
So with that said, that you're getting into the cards, is there a possibility that the Rogue Street Weapons is going to possibly come back as a possibility?
It's something I still want to do.
Yeah.
I still love the concept. It's my concept, so I love the concept. The big thing is, for a while there was a question of whether we could afford the art because the art for Black Chrome was so expensive.
Right.
And it's not a bad thing. I'm not complaining because it was worth it, and
it's beautiful.
And it's beautiful. But we established a precedent there where we can't go do lesser art, for example, for this deck because we already have. Because we'd have to do that art over again to make sure it's all in the same style, and B, it'll feel a cop out. But now we're thinking about, what if we do this with no art? And that gives us more room on the cards to put things like weapon effects, especially for weapons with longer effect listings, which some weapons get some chunky rules. So we're looking at that, and then we're thinking, well, we can do this deck in an expansion later after we put out more, or we could wait till after Rusted Chrome comes out. And at that point, I'm not saying we'll never put out another set of guns again, but by that point, we'll have a decent set of guns to really make not just a 52 card deck or 100 card deck, but like a box. And at that point, I think what we'll have is a good quality product. And so it's something we're going to be revisiting down the road. So it could be more of an equivalent of Black Hand's Guide than a series of decks which you have to buy over, to buy expanding every time we put out a new book.
All right.
Well, you brought it up, and the salivary glands in my mouth just went into overdrive. Rusted Chrome, Nomad
Rustic
Gear.
Chrome.
Tell me about this product. I am so excited.
Okay, so I'm not going to say it's Nomad Gear. Specifically, it talks about the Nomad and Edgerunner economic cycle. So in 2045, the idea is that nomads bring most of your stuff to Night City, and some of their best clients, people buying it, are Edgerunners, and then Edgerunners get things and sell them or give them back to the nomads. And so there's this cycle. The Edgerunner, the nomads sell. The nomads are the ones that bring in the gear that the Edgerunners use. Ultimately, that's where you get it from. And then in return, the Edgerunners steal gear. They steal items. They find items. A lot of edgerunning jobs involve basically getting things in Time of the Red to sell, and those eventually go back to the nomads and get taken to other places. So there's this economic cycle, and so we're going to talk about that. So it's going to be not just here's a bunch of nomad stuff, but here's stuff nomads use, here's stuff Edgerunners use, here's stuff that goes into that, blocks into that cycle. That being said, we definitely will be talking more about nomads and their role in the Time of the Red, and possibly the role of the different nations in the Time of the Red, and Night City specifically.
It's not just nomads, it's not just solos, but it's not just Edgerunners. It's their relationship and how they form the backbone of the economy in Night City, really.
Well, of the world, it sounds like.
In Black Chrome, we focused on the middle point, which is the Fixer, because the Fixer gets from the nomads and sells to the Edgerunners, or gets for the Edgerunners and ships through the nomads. And now we're focused on the other side of that, not the Fixers, but the Edgerunners and the nomads. And we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the role nomads play. And also, the truth is, it just gives us an excuse, because if we just did nomad stuff, that's not a whole Chromebook.
No, but tell you what, I'm so happy to hear you describe it like this, because that's really been like the backbone basis for me running nomads for the entire time I've been playing. I mean, both the source books I did for Data Fortress, Nomad Market, and Dust in the Wind, both kind of center around that concept of, nomads bring stuff in return they'll get medical supplies and the things they need to survive on the road while they're doing these jobs.
Yeah. And the truth is, it also gives us an excuse to just have basically any item we want, because every item moves one way or the other through Edgerunner or Nomad hands.
Yep.
At some point or other, especially in the Time of the Red.
I'm so very excited.
But yeah, James is working on things. A lot of James is currently he has an index card system. When I visited the offices last, his office was there was a wall, not like a wall, but all over the floor on the counters, there was a very methodically organized color-based index card system. And he is now in the process of taking that rough draft and digitizing it to work on his next draft.
Charlie Day situation over there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watch Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I watch very little television these days, which is just because I don't have cable anymore, so it's whatever streaming service I have, and I have a few streaming services, but also I watch less and I'm happier. I read more. There's some good stuff though. I just finished Prodigy, Star Trek Prodigy. That was delightful, and now I'm watching Death in Paradise, which is a British mystery series about death in a murder on a tropical island that's run for 6,000 years. And Lisa and I like to talk about British mysteries. We both have a fondness for them.
Good to know. So that leads us to the last thing, which was you guys are teaming up with Demiplane and the creation of a Cyberpunk Red Nexus. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes. Too much I could say about it. They're still working on it, but basically, the idea is, the shorthand is it's a D&D Beyond for Cyberpunk, and it will start. It'll start with the basics, the compendium of the book available, I believe, and then move on to character folios, and other tools. I'm excited because this is a great tool. It's I'm gonna go out on a limb and say at least 75% of all Cyberpunk Red play happens online these days, if not more.
I completely believe that.
We have, it's a case of, it's true of D&D probably too, but getting, and this is actually, you guys have been playing long enough. You know the pain. Hey, yeah. I want to play a role-playing game. You find 10 guys, 10 people, 10 people, and those 10 people are all eager to play the role-playing game for you. And then you say, I want to play Cyberpunk 2020, or I want to play Tales of the Floating Vagabond, or I want to play this game, which is not as popular as others. And they say, we'd rather play D&D. Or when I came up in the 90s, we're going to play Vampire and Mage.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, well, okay. And now, thanks to the internet, no matter what negatives the internet brought us, it has brought us as positive. I can now say, hey, I want to play Cyberpunk Red, and I can find a player in France and a player in Texas and a player, literally next door, and we can get together, the four of us, and we can play Cyberpunk Red. Scheduling problems still exist, but we're playing Cyberpunk Red together, even though we're in 4 different time zones and multiple countries, and that is fantastic. So yes, like I said, a lot of our players, we're big and blah, but we're published in multiple languages. Cyberpunk Red is published in multiple languages in many countries, and it's cyberpunk as a genre is an international phenomenon. So we have players all over the world, and it's a lot easier, I think, to find a group that will play in a real campaign as opposed to, we'll play it for a session and then we'll go back to our other campaign. And with that, having a multitude of tools. I personally, when I run games online, it's literally have your character sheet in front of you, roll your own dice. I'll believe you if you tell me what you roll. If you're lying, if I think you're lying to me, then we already have no trust, and I can't GM for you.
You're just hurting yourself at that point.
And then I share a screen when we need maps, and I say, just tell me where you're moving, and I'll move your token. And it's a simple, low high tech setup. It's low technology compared to VTTs, but high tech because it's the internet, and that works just fine for me. But other people, being on Fantasy Grounds, being on Roll20, being on Demiplane, having the Cyberpunk Red Companion app, all these tools and a variety of tools, not just one, you have to play it this way, tools, provides options, and it allows you to find the option that works best for you. I've got people, most people are probably playing with Roll20 if they're playing online, because that's relatively free. But I've got people who are out there saying, I love Fantasy Grounds because Fantasy Grounds, it's harder to use than Roll20. It's more fiddly, but the options are better, and they're really glad that it's on Fantasy Grounds. And there's people who use the companion app, and they're really happy about that. And Demiplane will be great. And I want as many options as makes sense for us to have.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where my site grew, or grew into, right? Was of course, this is for Cyberpunk 2020, and I started it back
in the day.
Yeah, well, it started in 2013, and when I actually really got into programming and wanting to do something with my site other than just listing, here's some NPCs, here's some, rules that I've made up, but actually making a tool that can help sort through all of the Cyberpunk rules. And I think the 2013 thing from CDPR, their trailer, right, to get people hired, really got me going and wanting to expand for 2020. And even to this day, I'm still pushing out updates to my character generator for 2020. So yeah, it's that niche that's been empty. that you see, you look at it and you're like, oh, I wish I had something for this. And that's where a lot of my tools spawn from, is like, I wish I had this to be able to use during either live play or um, through online gaming. And of course, COVID started the whole online gaming, at least for me. And Roll20 was nice, but it was also kind of clunky. Same with, like, I tried to get into Foundry, and it seemed like, okay, you're gonna have to build your tool anyways. However, if you're gonna build your tool, you have to go by our way of building a tool. Versus me, who's a web programmer, I'm like, I'm gonna build my own.
It's just not very intuitive.
Yeah. And the downside of Foundry is
I think we lost him again.
Yeah, well, for me, the downside of Foundry is you have to build everything yourself. Plus, you have to find a server to host it, right?
Yep.
Either you had to pay for a server or create your own.
Oh, come on.
we get a lot of questions about Foundry. Sorry about that. Power blipped and I switched over from Wi-Fi to 5G. We get a lot of questions about Foundry, and I'll say, hey, I appreciate Foundry as a platform. I do. I know the people who use Foundry are evangelical about it. They really like it, and I appreciate that they love it. And I appreciate that it has a flexibility, if you know what you're doing, that no other platform has. But at the same time, Foundry's system and its business model makes it very hard to work with as a business. And unfortunately, Martell's Learning Games is a business. We need a specific entity in which to do business with. For example, Roll20, we do business with Roll20 directly. With Fantasy Grounds, we do work with a specific little company that's set up to make Fantasy Grounds modules. So, for example, people ask, why haven't you just made the fan Cyberpunk?
Switching over again.
To do business with.
You got to repeat the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, you're starting to cut in and out, my friend. Yeah, you're getting attacked by netrunners.
And
corporations have found them.
Yeah. You hearing me?
I'm hearing you.
Okay, so we've looked at Foundry, and unfortunately, at this point in time, there's just Foundry itself. The people behind Foundry aren't super interested in doing business with anyone. They'll just say, "Yeah, go find someone and make your own thing." We're too small a company to put the resources in to make your own thing at this point.
Right.
And the big thing about making a thing is you have to keep it updated. Like I said, so that when Foundry updates, you update it. You have someone that's constantly making bug fixes. That's a lot of investment. And working with an existing team doesn't work unless they're a business entity. We can.
Man,
I think he's walking.
Yeah, I am walking.
Yeah.
When 30 people do a thing, how do we make sure that anything we pay gets well distributed and fairly distributed to people if they're not specifically a on paper organization of some kind?
Yeah.
It's tough.
And
I hate capitalism, but it's there. It's true.
And having an IT staff can be a bit expensive.
Oh, just a bit. Yeah, we have a computer system in the office, and that computer system, we have an on-call IT service, and that is not going to go cover software that is made, unfortunately. If and when someone presents us with a viable business model for Foundry or for any other VTT, we will happily look at it. We're never going to say, no, you can't do this. We just have to, we could do Foundry, or we can make like 3 books.
Right. You'd rather have the 3 books.
3 books, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And that's always a trade-off. It's like people say, why don't you go to more conventions? We say, because
money.
Money is true, but time. Every convention we go to is 2 to 3 weeks of lost productivity.
Yeah. And I don't.
That when you get Confunk and have to come back and recover from that.
Oh God, no. Or yeah, in case of Gen Con, I was an extra week of lost productivity because of the COVID thing. Always fun.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, there's trade-offs for everything when we look at it. That's outside our core business. We have to really look at it, and it's inside too.
Yeah.
We look at how much we can do when we can do it, not just in terms of how much it costs, but also how much time it takes.
Yeah, we had a fan question prior to
Yes.
this meeting. They asked about your boss because he knows he was wondering if he's going to be adding anything to the Forlorn Hopes because he did write the Agents of Destiny, or sorry, Agents of Desire for the Tales of the Red, and the fan really loved that adventure and was wondering if Mike is going to be. It sounds like he's doing some work for Night City. Is there anything else that he's kind of like been working on?
Well, I can't talk much about what Mike's been working on. Mike does a lot of behind the scenes world building
Mm-hmm.
constantly. That it is not for any specific book, but informs every book. So there is that. Also, so no, for Forlorn Hope, Mike has not done any specific writing for it. He didn't write any adventures. He didn't write any of the rules. He did contribute when I sat down with him because it wasn't just I didn't put together a campaign book, get a bunch of writers and say, okay, make your own thing. I had a specific outline of each adventure is going to be this, and then within this you have room to grow. And so Mike and I sat down and we worked out that outline together, what it would be and what would be there. But for Night City, he will be specifically doing writing for that in the prologue, the what is Night City, how does Night City work section of the book, in the front of the book. For future products, Mike is in and out as he needs to be. And like I said, he is always working on Night City itself and the world of Cyberpunk itself on one level or another.
Right. Yeah, I mean, talking to like Ed Balme and Will Moss and all the other writers who have contributed to through the ages, right? It seems like Mike is kind of like the high level idea guy who makes sure that these ideas are fleshed out, and then he has all these talented writers just come in and just put meat on the bone, right? And
Yeah.
really pretty it up to the point
Yeah.
where it's just amazing stuff that our house
Yeah,
writing is
and
providing.
that's the advantage. Mike will come and say, I want blah, and here's a lot of information about blah, and we'll say, okay, now it's time to take blah and turn it into and we will do that. And sometimes it's a case of I'll go, okay, like I'll say, okay, hey Mike, how do you think crime and punishment works in Night City in 2045? And we'll have a long discussion about it, and I'll take everything he told me in that discussion and I'll write it down. And put it together. And sometimes it's a case of, like, for example, in the Edge Runner mission kit, I'll say, hey, Mike, here's the outline of the project, which we work on together. Here's your section. I need 10,000 words with it in 2 months from now. And he'll sit down, he'll bang out those 10,000 words, and he'll give them to me. So sometimes he's the guy at the top who, he decides things and they come down to us.
Yep.
Sometimes he's the font of wisdom that we can climb up the mountain to and say, how does X work? And sometimes he's the writer, and he's very humble about it. He's Mike Pondsmith, and he's the most humble guy in the world. But he'll say, okay, you're in charge, Jay. You need 5,000 words. Tell me what those 5,000 words you need are, and I'll give them to you. So it's many roles depending on what is needed at the time.
Yeah. Well, we still would love to have Mike one of these future broadcasts, because I know Derek has yet to meet him. I've met him a couple times.
It's the dream.
Yeah. So.
He's the tippy top.
Yeah. I'd recommend talking to Rob. I will say his interviews are few and far between these days, not because he is only picking the best of the best.
Right.
The ones that will get the most clicks, but because He got mediated out
Right.
during the height of the 2077 promotional. It was like he was doing like an interview a day for a while. And
Yeah.
he was like, after a while, I was like, I have a whole company. The rest of you are working on this. You can talk to the media for a while, and I'm going to go make things.
I'm gonna sleep for once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was like that because, it's weird. Like half of the video game media is in England.
Yeah.
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 But yeah, it was a lot of work for him. And these days, he always felt like, okay, I have an interview and I got to prepare before and after, and I lose half a day to a day of work. And so, like I said, talk to Rob,
Okay.
um,
We
and
will.
Rob will see what he
I've
can
been
do.
I've
But
been working on Rob.
i-
Trust me.
if he can't say yes, that is no slight on you. That is just literally Mike's like, I just don't want to do interviews now. I've done a lot of
Oh
them.
yeah.
Yeah. Makes
No,
sense.
we poke him every now and then just to keep the embers burning. We'd love to have him. We'll be patient.
Yes.
Cool deal.
So the other question, or there's probably two more questions. Is there any progress on the homebrew rules? I know Rob Barefoot mentioned that you guys were like working on improvements or some other rewrite of the current home rules. Is that
Um,
still on the horizon?
So you're talking about multiple levels of things here. So we'll start with what homebrew is. Homebrew is I make a rule, I make a piece of gear, I make a city, I make an adventure, I put it up on my website or in a Google Doc for free. People can come download it. It's the old school definition of homebrew is what we're saying. It's back in the day when it's literally Data Fortress 20, what Data Fortress 2020 is, right?
Yep.
Um, that's one thing, and those rules probably won't change anytime soon. Uh, then you're talking about community content,
Right.
and community content works on multiple levels. There is first the community content programs you have over Drive-Thru RPG, like DM's Guild, and Call of Cthulhu has one, and Vampire has one, and they are. I can take my homebrew, I can pretty it up with resources provided to me by the company that's sponsoring this community content program. I can also add in other resources, like I can commission an artist or I can use public domain art. And then I can put it out there on Drive-Thru RPG, and I get a cut, and Drive-Thru gets a cut as a retailer, and the publisher gets a cut. And then there is the OGL, which is an open game license, and that's basically what D&D and Pathfinder work on, which is as long as you follow this license, you can make anything you want within the rules of the license, and you can sell it on Drive-Thru, or you can publish it in physical format and sell it directly through your company, or you can be a publisher with a license to sell it, much like Atlas and Ionis had licenses for Cyberpunk back in the day.
Right.
So those are your three levels. The homebrew license, the homebrew guidelines, and their guidelines aren't likely to change anytime soon. We ran them very hard through our IP lawyer, and he felt they were the best for protecting what is, for Cyberpunk especially, a multi-company IP that doesn't just rest with us, which makes it hard to work with.
Yep.
We are not going to probably ever do an OGL for various reasons, but which goes to community content. Fusion was not an OGL. Fusion was you can come to us and we'll give you a license for pretty much nothing.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, Fusion was an early, kind of an early glimpse of the OGL, but it was not an OGL because an OGL doesn't require buy-in from the company that produces that released the OGL.
Okay.
Fusion still required at least a verbal handshake, so to speak. So at least a community content program. And I'll say community content for Cyberpunk is something we have been exploring. I mentioned that it's a multi-IP project. Cyberpunk isn't just us. Cyberpunk is CDPR. Cyberpunk is actually it's just us and CDPR. for the most part, and then there are other companies dip in and out like Dark Horse or Studio Trigger or Netflix. But because it's multiple people, companies, and there are contracts involving who can do what, a community contact is a tightrope we're still trying to figure out how to walk. And I don't know when that's going to happen, because it happens, navigating it happens between other projects. That being said, we are looking at other projects. Shadowscar will have a community content license. I'm 99% sure of it, because we own it entirely, and Cody's excited about it, and Cody wants to give people the chance to make up their own stuff for it. So it will probably come down the line. So the answer is, at this point, I would not hold my breath for it. It's something we're still looking at. I promise we're still working on it, but
Right.
it's not something that it's legal and therefore slow.
Right. Yeah, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this statement, but I think the OGL for D&D kind of was one of the worst decisions that they made, because now their IP is basically out of their control.
It's
And they're
it's a
getting
tough
hate
thing.
for
The
it, right?
OGL,
Trying to bring it back in house.
yeah, yeah. The OGL is multiple things. It had multiple reasons. Like the OGL, first of all, is responsible for a crash in the industry,
Yeah.
because so much D20 content came out that it caused a
Just a
glut.
glut.
The OGL was a business decision, because Wizards of the Coast knew they couldn't put out as much content as they wanted to, or as the fans wanted. So the OGL put that burden on other companies. Also, it is said, though I have no proof, that they were saying that there was a business decision to force other companies to produce stuff for their game rather than produce competing products.
Right.
That's always been my take on the whole situation.
But
that,
yes,
and just throwing out, like, making sure right off the bat that there was just tons of support material for this brand new system.
So we kind of look at it like we personally, I think, and I can't speak for Mike, but I think in general, I look at it like fan fiction. Putting aside some of the early days of fan fiction, where like Anne McCaffrey was saying, "Hey, you can't write fan fiction based on Pern without my approval," which is silly. No modern author is going to say, "Hey, you can't write fan fiction and publish it on the internet." Go for it. I want you to. That's great. Honestly, it's good for us, for you to do that, because it expands the reach of our product with very little input from us, and it keeps you engaged in Cyberpunk, even if you're not playing Cyberpunk. That's fantastic. Also, it's cool and it's heartwarming to see people love something I've worked on so much that they want to create it themselves. At the same time, there is something to be said, Vic. We are not Wizards of the Coast.
Lost them again.
You cut out again, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But yeah, the OGL was definitely a double-edged sword that it allowed a lot of fledgling companies to get their stuff out there, but in the end, I think it might have done more harm than good.
I think it
definitely.
Yeah, to me, it definitely did more harm.
There was just too much, and it was at the end of the day, so much of it was exactly the same, just by sheer volume, and it was almost impossible to wade through it all and figure out what was good and what wasn't.
Yeah, but it also, and it led into that whole crash of okay, this is crap, this is crap, this is crap. Why am I buying crap? And why D&D kind of slowed down at the time. But meanwhile, Dungeons & Dragons 3E was just pumping product out after product as well. But now, once Hasbro bought it, Hasbro as a corporation, they want to control their IP, and they can't, right? They can't prevent somebody from saying this is 5e compatible going forward. And, and Hasbro not getting one red cent from companies who basically are making profits off of their name, off of their IP, basically.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, I can't really. It sucks that Hasbro has made some of the decisions they made recently. But at the end of the day, you're right. It's their product. They should see the majority of profits. They should be able to control the quality of content if they want to. I don't know. They should have they shouldn't have. If that was the direction they were going, they should not have kept the OGL going through fourth and fifth edition.
Yeah.
Well, they actually did try to change it for fourth edition.
Yeah.
That's a whole story.
Yeah.
But what I'll say is this: is people tend to forget something with Artels Learning Games. So when you think about D&D, D&D is not published by Gary Gygax Incorporated. It's published by Wizards of the Coast, which is owned by Hasbro. Most games are a lot of games are published by corporations that are no longer owned by their original creator. Yeah. Artels Learning Games is still owned by its original founders. Cyberpunk is still published by its original creator, and I don't think necessarily there's anything wrong with a creator, whether it is someone doing Cyberpunk or a writer writing a series of novels, saying, hey, for this thing that I created, granted with other people in terms of for Cyberpunk, because there's a lot of writers who worked on it, but this thing I created, it's my thing, and that's what I want to do with it. I want to have control over it for now, and I think you should go make your. And you want to fan fiction, that's fine, but you shouldn't profit off of it because it's my thing.
Absolutely.
And you should go make your own thing because that's what I did. I didn't get a traveler license because Mike could have. He could have gotten a traveler's license. Traveler was giving out licenses for people to make new star systems, for example, back in that time. And he said, no, I'm going to do my own thing. And I think that's part of it. Mike would, and I definitely do, encourage you, do your thing. Don't make the next Cyberpunk source book. No, if you do, good on you. But some of the greatest games to come out in the last 5 years have been people really doing something interesting and new and their own thing. Whether it's Alice is Missing or Mork Borg or Thirsty Sword Lesbians. That's somebody saying, no, I'm not going to play in 5e's Playground. I'm not going to make something for somebody else's system. I'm going to do my own thing, and it's really amazing. That's where the industry grows and the hobby grows. So please do your own thing. Enjoy being a designer and doing your own thing. Says the guy whose job is to work on somebody else's thing. So take it for what you will.
Yeah, talking to the dudes who have dedicated their websites to the last.
Yeah, but we're also not looking for any money,
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to make any money off this.
Yeah.
It's just labor of love.
I think that was different than I think of the 90s with the websites. There was just a lot of fan sites, right? Who were producing stuff, not looking for a dime and not trying to cash in on the product, but trying to support it and expand it.
Yeah. And
it was a beautiful time.
You see that with a lot of new technology art forms, whether it's that or webcomics or podcasts, where at first it's just people fooling around and doing cool things. And then someone figures out, oh, I can monetize this. And then business kicks in one form or the other. And suddenly the little things kind of vanish or they get eaten up by the bigger things, and often to their detriment. So I used to do webcomics, and there was a series of webcomic companies that would gather hundreds of webcomics together. And
I remember those.
Almost universally, the creators would suffer because of it, because they didn't get fair deals out of it.
No.
Oh, Penny Arcade.
So many great comics.
They started off that way.
Yeah, Penny Arcade started that way. Penny Arcade is one of the few examples. They're I call them the Google of webcomics, because they were there at exactly the right time, at exactly the right moment. As a result, they got a dominance that no one else will ever get. No webcomic will ever be
rolled well on that roulette table.
Yeah.
with the possible exception of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I believe, started off as like a webcomic.
Yeah. So another question. So we were talking to Monster Fight Club a couple episodes ago, and I know that they've introduced a bunch of new gear, cyberware in their system. Is there any thoughts of like turning that into a DLC in the future for Red, or is that something that's kind of
I would have to
not
get a
thought?
list of if it's actually new or not.
Okay.
I'd have to take a look at what they've done. I haven't. I don't approve everything for Combat Zone. I basically approve. I do design approvals for the most part,
Yeah.
but I don't do game rule approvals. We trust them. We understand that Combat Zone is a different game, and as long as they don't do, for example, Mantis Blades on a 2045 miniature, we're good. But we recognize, just like 2077 is a video game, and video games can't follow the 2020 rules exactly. We recognize that Combat Zone needs to have design space to do things differently. And so I can't say that I paid as much attention as I should have to all the different gear they're introducing. But if you're saying, if you as players of Combat Zone are saying that there is enough stuff that doesn't, it's not just like, this pop-up blah, this cyber weapon could be a pop-up melee weapon under the current rules. If they're like truly new items, I can look at that and I can think about it,
Okay.
and see if it works. So
Yeah,
thank
I
you
know
for cluing
someone
me into that. That's an interesting idea.
someone mentioned it. I think either on Reddit or possibly Discord about doing a homebrew of that conversion. And I didn't even think to look at it in depth, but supposedly there are a few items that aren't in Red, but are in Combat Zone. I think those were just basically to present a new mechanic within Combat Zone, just because it's a skirmish.
Yeah, some things are going to
Tabletop
work
game?
in a skirmish game that aren't necessarily going to work in a tabletop role playing game,
Or
and
aren't
vice
going to
versa.
work in a computer game. I mean, to me, I thought the Quick Axe, at least the way it is in 2077, although James and Jay, you guys did a great way of converting them. I didn't think they would work in tabletop very well, just because of how OP they are within the computer game.
We worked really hard on them, and it's a question of, it's all a question of balance, which is a term I hate in game design, because I don't think there's truly. I think balance is artificial, but there is a question of, is there enough to make it so that it is cool without being defensible, while still defensible. And so James worked really hard on that, and then we play tested it, and we worked on it some more, and we play tested it some more. And your own comments from Gen Con, not this year but last year, helps make some changes, last minute changes to it. We added that. I think your comments are what led to us adding an extra tier, because it was a 3-tier. It was a 3-tier system, and then we moved to a 4-tier system so that the harder things were. And then, of course, you didn't get to see it with all the cool things like the self ice.
Yeah, exactly.
And a very simple breaking line of sight ejects someone from your neural network. But
I don't think that was clear in
no,
at least the preliminary worlds. But definitely things like that. Because
it's not that we go into detail with the mission kit itself, because the mission kit's supposed to be simple to play. We don't bring it up until we get to the 2077 red in red rules. But that's it. And so I had to look, like, some things, like if they've got a quick healing drug that works multiple times, that's not something we'll bring into red, because the ability to not heal or it is a key part of cyberpunk gameplay in tabletop, but absolutely vital in a role-playing game or a miniature skirmish game.
Yeah,
I think mostly it might be the programs that Monster Fight Club has, rather than actual gear. But
there's a trick. A miniature skirmish game can't do net architectures the same way we can.
Right.
So they've got to do something a little different, and I have to look at it, but I
Yeah.
had to respect that what works for us for them may not work for us. So,
Right.
long story short, I'll take a look
Yeah.
because that is at least an idea worth pursuing, and we will see.
Yeah. So we got about another 15 minutes. The last written question. Well, there's actually two last questions I have. So the question is: so next year is going to mark Red's 5th anniversary.
Yes.
And I know other game systems often start looking at creating new additions to either add new mechanics, remove old ones, etc. Are there plans to upgrade Red within the next few years from all the feedback you've gotten throughout the past 4?
That's a great question. What's your next one?
What have you been playing lately?
Beautiful to handle that.
The short answer is I can't talk about any product we haven't already announced.
Right.
The long answer is at this point in time, no. We are not looking. I am not actively working on anything like that. I do have
ideas in Mike's head.
No, I do keep a document of here are things I think we should look at. These are not a document of these are changes we must make, but a here are things we should look at if we ever do a new edition, because I don't want to get to that point one day and say, hey, I'm starting from scratch now. I want to be prepared. But that document is it's a side project as opposed to a main project, and I don't know if and when it's going to lead to anything else. I will say that Red continues to expand. The headquarter rules from Forlorn Hope will add some really cool things that people have been asking for, actually. And never forget that tech upgrading gives you the power to homebrew in frightful ways that if they blow up at your table, they only blow up at your table and not into the community as a whole.
Right.
It's your fault. Yeah. I know with 2020, the company seemed just like when the internet became a thing. 2020 seemed, and Artelsorian seemed just like the perfect size company to where the homebrew systems or the homebrew web pages and all the fan sites and all that were not only a boon, but it seemed like some of that, definitely some of that made its influence into the actual like official material. I know some of the Chromebook entries. I know Chris Conkle from 2K20. He had a couple of entries in there. Is that Cyberpunk Red now in 2077 is so huge. Is that even a possibility anymore?
So there's a couple things there. First of all, I'll say that I don't really look at homebrew for legal reasons. Unfortunately,
Sure.
the things are different now than they were 20 years ago, and I can no longer like really look at something and say, hey, that's cool. I'll contact the writer, or just look at something and say, hey, that's neat, and then go on and do something else. And then because there's a lot of parallel design in the industry.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And there's only so many paths design can take along the rule set. And so for legal reasons, not because we don't think we can or can't win a lawsuit, but because a lawsuit's just energy and money that we don't have to spend. I don't look at a lot of homebrew. Yeah. But that being said, things will happen. For example, the Net Running Deck started off as a fan project. We saw it, we liked it. It was one of those things where I didn't have to read it. It popped up on Reddit. I saw it on Reddit. It's like, oh, that's neat. Mike saw it and said, hey, that's neat. And so we went and we said, okay. We went to the artist. We said, hey, if you take that down, we'll buy the art you did, and we'll make a deck out of it. And he said, cool. And so
Nice.
his Net Running Deck became the basis for our Net Running Deck. So that happens. The wound cards, actually, the trauma deck will use icons that came originally from the companion app, which itself was a fan project before we gave the creator a license. So on that level, it can happen. On the, like, I saw the cool thing you wrote and I will buy this one item from you, probably not. But there have been occasions where a writer, I've pulled up writers. Melissa Wong is an amazing example. She started doing her 20 things list on the Reddit for Cyberpunk. 20 blah you encounter blah, and Mike was like, "Whoa, this is fantastic! She's an amazing writer, and she has fresh ideas, and I love her." And we hired her, and she took down her lists, and we bought those lists outright and made changes to them because they had to be. She was not concerned about lore accuracy at the time, and obviously that's something we had to be. Yeah. Or it wasn't even generic. It was that she was happy to she was writing for her Night City, not our Night City. And everybody has their own Night City. So it has happened. Melissa Wong's a good example. You mentioned Anjali. Anjali, actually, I know from my days working on Pathfinder third-party stuff, but I hired him after looking at how well he did his being active on the Discord and the things he was doing. Linda Evans came to us because we noticed not only was she a great GM, but she has this amazing and incredible understanding of mysteries and crime in a role-playing game that a lot of people don't have. And so we hired her for her unique perspective there. So we have worked with writers before. It happens, but it's not a thing I would, don't be ready, waiting for me to knock on your door because you put a thousand pieces of gear out there. In fact, I will say the thing that's least likely to attract my attention or Mike's attention or James's attention is new gear, because we're not looking at it for that exact reason, because we don't want you to say, oh, we've already had people say, oh, this thing was in Black Chrome and they stole it from us. And I guarantee we didn't. But yeah. So, but if you do some cool, interesting stuff, and we happen to see it, and the stars align and it's the right place at the right time, it could be that I hire you for something, but I'm not going to promise I can. Though I will say this, at the same time, if you don't put your stuff out there, you never will be hired.
Right.
And it's a balance. If you want to work professionally in tabletop role-playing games, you're going to have to, you've got to, I can't, no one's going to hire you if they have no idea who you are. I did a thread on this recently on the social medias. So you need to put your stuff out there on a blog, on DM's Guild, wherever. You got to get your stuff out there, and then you've got to go out and meet people and talk to people. If you're at Gen Con, there is a freelancer meetup where freelancers get together and talk, like every Friday at Gen Con, the Friday of Gen Con at like 7 p.m. at the Omni in the lobby. It's been that way for a couple of years. I don't see why it won't happen again next year. I go every year. I talk to freelancers. I invariably come away with a writer or two. One of the writers who is working on Night City now is someone I met there, who I talked to for a while, and I really dug their ideas. So I'm going to say, as sucky as it is, you got to get out there and talk to people, and don't promote yourself in a you should hire me because way. But if your stuff's there and it shines, people will notice, and they're more likely to ask you to write for them.
Right.
That's very good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, those are pretty much all the questions, and I know we got about 5 minutes. Do you have any questions for us?
Well, it's not a question. I will say, hey, please be aware, if you're not, hopefully you are, that every month we put out something free on our website. We are the only company I'm aware of that does that.
Yep.
We have provided hundreds of pages of free content, which you can download, covering a wide variety of topics. They eventually go into Interface Red, but until then, even then, we still keep those articles free. So please check them out. For last month, this month, and next month, we'll be putting out 2 a month, because we're also putting out 3 free articles, DLCs for the Mission Kit. We had one last month, which is a cool little adventure called Karaoke Night, which we ran at Gen Con. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy writing it. It was born out of a off the top of my head demo I had to run at Gamma which is the big trade conference. I was running it for retailers to convince them to buy the mission kit when it came out. And I liked it so much, I wrote it as an adventure. This month, we're going to put out one that contains expansions for Mantis Blades and Monowire and Gorilla Arms, and does so in a way that actually opens up a whole new design space in Cyberpunk Red Homebrew. So pay attention to that. That's pretty cool. And next month, I can't say what it is yet, but it's coming. This month's, I talked about Linda Evans and how good she is at mysteries. This month's DLC for Cyberpunk Red will be a adaptation of the investigation system we wrote for Witcher to Cyberpunk, and it's basically what if you treat your mystery like a monster, and every time you find and solve a clue, your mystery loses hit points, and when it hits 0, whether you've solved it out of character or not, you solve it in character, thereby essentially making it easier for GMs who are not good at mysteries. Because you run a mystery and you're convinced that this clue is obvious and the players don't get it, and you sit there for like an hour, like investigating the scene, and you're so frustrated because you're like, it's right there. Why don't you look at it? This is a way of doing that. Yeah, this is a way of doing that without running a mystery, without having to worry about your ability as a mystery writer, because mysteries are hard, or your player's ability as a detective, because your players are never as clever as characters are.
I'm running Mask of Nyarlathotep for my friends, and
clue.
Yeah.
my group is like, I don't understand these clues. I don't know how to connect it.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're supposed to be doing next. And it's like, okay. And of course, Cthulhu has the mechanic of you have an idea roll, right? You kind of push the plot along, or hey, look at this clue again, or provide that.
Yep.
So just in case the in-life players don't have a clue, as it were. There's a mechanic to let it.
Yeah, the investigation system uses the deduction check for a similar purpose.
Right. Cool. Sounds like something I might pick up just for my own other game purposes as well.
Yeah. It's a good system. I wrote it originally. Linda and Jolly worked together to adapt it to Cyberpunk. It's going to be cool. It'll be out by the end of the month. The expansions, what are called cyberware enhancements for the mission kit, will be out at the end of the month, but they are fully compatible with in the same way the mission kit is compatible with Red. That cyberware you bring into your Red game, you'll be able to bring these enhancements in for the cyberware for your Red game. And I just keep checking because we're going to have something new every month, and not enough people know that, and it's sad because it's really awesome.
Yeah,
absolutely. People go to rtalsorian.com or rtalsoriangames.com, and like you said, every month there's free DLC both for Cyberpunk and The Witcher.
Not as much for The Witcher. There is stuff that's free for The Witcher. We haven't been putting out anything new for The Witcher in a while, but stuff that there's even one or two things that's for Teenagers from Outer Space and Castle Frankenstein there.
Yep.
Yeah, you haven't said anything, but I'm going to assume Shadow Scar is going to be added to that list of things as it takes off.
I think it's a great idea. That's up to Cody.
Yeah.
All right, so we're at time. Again, Jay Gray, appreciate you taking the time, especially so soon after Gen Con, to talk about what you guys announced. And provide some insight into what those announcements really are and what everyone can be looking forward to.
I am absolutely happy to talk to you often. You guys are fantastic, and I really appreciate your dedication to Cyberpunk for these many years.
Oh yeah, it's a deep, abiding love, and every time we talk to you, it stimulates like the Pavlovian response as you tell us what's coming.
And more serious moment. I want to say thank you for preserving the history of the game by interviewing so many people who were involved in 2020 and who have been involved in Red, because something as you know, Scott Ruggles passed away not so long ago.
Yeah, we were very sad we didn't get a chance to talk to him.
And the unfortunate truth is that is that's not the end of people passing away. That's the beginning, because the writers who worked on 2020 are getting older,
Yep.
and I hope all of them are here with us for many, many, many years to come. But they may not be, and your podcast is quite literally taking their words and their memories and preserving it past their lifespans, because without it, it's just stories in their head they may be told in a bar, and no one
Yeah.
no one recorded. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. I really appreciate it, because there have been many books about the history of role-playing games, and Shannon Appelklein's Designers of Dragons covers, which is a great series. It covers Our Tales of Rain games through the release of V3, I believe. But even then, it's only a few pages, and obviously Cyberpunk's history is hundreds and hundreds of pages of stories and people, writers and artists and fans and gamers, all working together to create this amazing, massive, enduring legacy.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you're bringing back some of the guys like Will Moss. I mean, he wrote all the corporate books. He did all the adventures, so he was a kind of a big influence into the world building around cyberpunk. You know.
Yeah.
And
Well,
you've
that's super
you've
important.
got David Ackerman, you've got Mike McDonald.
Mm-hmm.
It really does our hearts good to see these guys still putting out stuff, still being appreciated, and that's really what it is. Like, this game and this world of Cyberpunk this franchise has just had such a huge influence on us, and been such a big part of our lives for so long, that we're asking the questions we've always wanted to know, and we're just happy to get those answers and be able to hear these stories, and be able to talk to anybody involved, past, present, future.
Well, I will say, in addition to the 2020 crew, you should be looking at some of the Red Crew guys, because
Yep.
they'll have stories up until this point now. We've been going long
Absolutely.
enough that, as you said, we're hitting 5 years, and several of them have been able to work on multiple projects, so they might have some cool stuff to talk about.
Yep.
So
I mean, we've had
give them some love.
James and Rob,
Yep.
and I'm going to work with Rob to try to sync up with other people like Melissa, because she
Yeah,
seems to
Melissa's
be a
great.
powerhouse right now for cyberpunk.
Yeah,
Your comments today and what she's done, I very much want to talk to Melissa.
Yeah, Melissa's, I think, our oldest cyberpunk red freelancer. Not oldest in terms of age, but she's been working with us the longest. And and then there are others. We've been fortunate enough where by the time Night City 2045 comes out, there'll be people who've worked on 3, 4, 5 projects, which is absolutely wonderful and amazing.
Yeah.
It does our hearts good to see that.
Well, appreciate your time, and we hopefully will talk to you in the future.
Absolutely.
All right. So that's a wrap. So you can check me out on my site, cybersmiley.net. I have a bunch of utilities for Cyberpunk Red as well as 2020. I hang out on a bunch of Discords, so if you do an @cybersmiley, good chance you're going to be hitting me. Also, I hang out at the Cyberpunk Red and the Cyberpunk 2020 Reddit sites. So that's where you can check me out.
I am Wisdom000, Derek Bernier. I run DataFortress2020.com, the largest, most comprehensive Cyberpunk 2020 site out there. You can find me on Facebook at the Data Fortress 2020 and Cyberpunk 2020 forums, as well, of course, as Cybernation Uncensored, and the same goes for Reddit. You'll find me at the forums dedicated to Cyberpunk as a franchise, just anything. 2020, Red, 2077. And as always, if you have any comments, criticisms, suggestions, we love to hear from you. Reach out to us at through any of these channels. You can get our old interviews and shows on the Cyber Nation Uncensored YouTube channel, Tales from the Forlorn Dopes playlist. Once again, we'd like to thank our guest for coming again. Please, definitely a friend of the show, my good man.
You're here.
But you're a friend to me, so I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely, you are always welcome. We'd like to thank Rob Mulligan and Cyber Nation Uncensored for hosting us, and we will see you again.
September 4th.
September 4th. Have a good night, everybody, and stay safe.
Bye.
Cyber Nation Uncensored.